I was personally inspired this week because I happened to be watching an old Jamie Oliver episode where can't remember what it was called, but he was focused on sugar and its infiltration into society, and how I think the key takeaway being obviously there was a whole lot of exploring in hospitals and the types of surgeries and stuff that have to be done that that was intended for shock value, I'm sure, but the idea being that we consume way too much sugar, and these can be like the impacts. But I thought the thing that was probably even scarier than that, which we all know anyway, is that sugar just shows up everywhere, and it's actually, you have to be really consciously aware of what you're eating, because sugar has a way of sneaking into things you don't even think about sometimes. Like, I think in that episode he picked up like a loaf of bread and he was like, oh, there can't be too much sugar in that, can't there? And then like the nutritionist say, nah, actually, I don't know, I can't remember how many grams of sugar was in it, but it was kind of like a shock value type thing. But it can be really hard in today's day and age, unless you're, I guess, maybe eating, I don't know, maybe if you're buying all, not locally sourced, but, what would you call them? Primary foods like fruit and veg and meat and fish from the market or something that you actually have to go out and prepare yourself.
That's right. I actually had a good look at the list that you had there online, and gee, that's a lot of sugar. When you're talking, around 100 grams a day. But the thing is it's no longer, just a bit of sugar that you might add to some home baked cake, or the odd teaspoon or two that you might put in your tea or coffee. This is in everything. It's in your processed foods. It makes things sweeter, and processed foods have really gone down that path of knowing that we like sweet, salty, crunchy, sort of soft foods, and sugar plays into that so well. And that's how it's in everything. So it's, as you say, all the stuff you don't think of, the sugar is in there. And you have a nice soft drink that you really like to enjoy on a summer's or spring day like today, and there's a few more teaspoons in there as well. So it is in everything. It's very hard to get rid of, and you really have to think very carefully and disconnect yourself from that processed food chain to really escape it.
It's certainly the reason why I haven't eaten cereal, at least. Well, I might eat it rarely, but I haven't eaten it in years because, it's a bit scary. Even the ones that you would consider, that have got healthy labeled on the box, whole bran, whatever it is, 100% bran. Just check the box, the label on the box. You mentioned the list. I got this from worldatlas.com, and obviously it's like a top 10 of individual sugar consumption
it's
in
top
grams.
10 horror stories, Ben.
Obviously Australia's in there at number 5, 95.6 grams, where I think in the Jamie Oliver show, interestingly, they were saying around, I think they were maxing out at 7 teaspoons of sugar, which was roughly around 30 grams or something. Here they're saying 50 grams max, but we're way over it anyway. That's twice the amount. No surprises, I think, with the US up at the top with 126 grams of sugar. And the bottom there, Canada at 89.1, which is still high. They're all within the margin of error, shall we say, as far as that's concerned. But it's a hell of a lot of sugar.
Well, that's right. But if you actually have a look, I think in most of those cases, you'll see populations where processed food, there's affluence in the population and processed food. I think the outlier is Mexico, and I think principally there's a very sugary cola drink that's very popular in Mexico, which is what gets Mexico into the top 10.
Absolutely. The other thing that I was going to that made me think of this was just, obviously I mentioned the surgery aspect and whatever, and again it's that shock value, because obviously the main I guess main thing that you'd probably want to be worried about is type 2 diabetes rearing its ugly head, which can have some devastating results. Obviously there might you might be lucky if you get it that it's just monitoring, because like in the sense, and again, it's quite invasive because you have to be on top of it every single day. But if it gets really bad, you can start losing appendages and other things if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's certainly not good. And just remember, Ben, for those of us that aren't taking the full 100 grams a day, there's somebody who's doing double that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's scary. And I guess maybe a final point that sort of stuck out with me is just I think it's the prevalence of, I mean, yeah, you can go out and get so many sugary drinks and buy them from, stores. There's a lot of fast food around, but it's also just in the supermarket with packaged foods that's the real killer.
Precisely, and you can go and get yourself some yogurt, and there's sugar in there, and you can go and get yourself just a plain piece of cake, but there's a lot of sugar in there. If it's processed, if it's the issue with processed foods is the way they get them tasting so good and so acceptable to us ahead of home prepared meals and items is because they taste so good, and sugar and salt is how you do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So check what you're buying in the supermarket, because yeah, it's a bit of a minefield out there.
And just on that, you think you're getting some marinated meat, but the marinade's full of sugar. You can't escape it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.